Warning, we don't go full on spoilers in our discussion of Everything Everywhere, but if you want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, then go see it first and come back to us. But also just go see it because it's amazing. All right, we're stepping out of the airlock and into the mind-bending world of an IRS building to discuss the A24 sci-fi action comedy masterpiece that is Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's opening wide today, this Friday, April 8th. And if you like the movies and you want to have a good time at the movies, that is action-packed and really heartfelt and like uplifting too, like not violent in a way that's like, oh, this is like really entertaining, but I feel bad like watching 50 headshots in a row. You will not feel that way about this movie. It has an incredible cast. Michelle Yeoh, the absolute legend. Ki Hu Kwan as Wayman Wang, back in the game again in front of the camera. Stephanie Su as Joy. James Hong, the legend James Hong. Jamie Lee Curtis and more. So I loved this movie. It was really, for everyone complaining that like there are too many comic book movies, everything's a Marvel movie or a DC tie-in or something like that. I guess, people would still criticize this movie for, depending heavily on the multiverse for its plot momentum. That said, it is just like so original in the way it deals with it. And the imagery it uses, it is so funny. And then like to have an all Asian cast as your, as your kind of like the crux of the movie, and their feelings about each other, their kind of disappointments with each other, their miscommunications. It's 3 generations of a family. It was just like felt really good to see. And then the crowd that I saw it here in LA. It was clear that somebody worked on the movie in my theater because like people started cheering when the credits rolled like randomly at a random place. So like
I love that.
It was really, really, really great energy. What did you think of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved it. Like I went to go and see it with a big group of friends after we went to this amazing black kind of flea market called Black Market Flea. So it was just like a very good day. And that I saw it in LA too, and it was in a huge cinema. We couldn't go to the IMAX, but we saw it in the biggest screen we could see it that wasn't IMAX. And people were reacting like it was a Marvel movie. Like it was, I couldn't have seen it with a better, like things were happening and people were like, yeah, just like screaming. And I was just like, this is so incredible. Because on the surface, if you describe what this movie is in a sentence, it's like Michelle Yeoh is a kind of late middle-aged woman who runs a laundromat and she's doing her taxes, and Jamie Lee Curtis is her IRS lady and she's evil, and it's kind of this like dreary middle age where she's thinking like, what could I have done with my life? And she's pulled into this crazy multiversal kind of war where she has to use every version of herself to gain the skills she needs to beat this mysterious bad guy Jobu Tabaki. And it sounds so outrageous, but like I watched that movie and it felt like it was the most accessible thing in the world. I think it's that balance, like you talked about, this idea of this intergenerational Asian storytelling, this cast just full of absolute legends. And it is this bonkers movie where there's 50 versions of Michelle Yeoh, which, by the way, who didn't want that? That's like the dream movie.
All want that.
But it's also like this really intimate niche story about like intergenerational misunderstandings and cycles of like familial emotional trauma. And Ki Hai Kwan is just like so incredible.
He's like, I kept thinking that it's like actually criminal that this actor could not find work for as long as he could not find work in front of the camera. He is so engaging. He's just like has a lightness and a charm to him that is all the more impressive for the fact that he does some real like impressive and authentic like martial arts stunt work that is like,
and he's been
high level stuff.
But this is like that's the other thing about this movie, which is why I think so far the screenings and the limited release have been really successful, and I hope the wide releases too, because I feel like this, people say this stuff, but this is literally a movie that has something for everyone. Feeling
does.
depressed, nihilistic, wishing the world would end, it's for you. Feeling like you wish everyone was kinder to each other, also for you. Feeling like you just want to see loads of cool action sequences that are completely outrageous and some of the best big screen Hollywood action that we've seen in years, also for you. Want to see an intergenerational family story? Also for you. Need more queer people on your screen? Also for you. Like, it's got everything. And yeah, I mean, those action sequences are just... The choreography is unreal. It's like Hong Kong cinema. It makes you feel like you're watching, you know, a Shaw Brothers movie late night on the TV, but you're getting to see it beautifully, big screen, in this really unbelievable sci-fi context.
It does something that I think that really hits me on an emotional level, which is like, and I think the best stories do that, which is take some wild, you know, sci-fi / fantasy-esque concept, a multiverse, right? Of multiple realities existing side by side. But like links it to something that is like really human, which is like regret about the way your life turned out.
Yep.
You know, who hasn't at a certain point in time been like, man, if I had done this, if I had done that, I wanted all these things for myself when I was younger, earlier on, but then I made a bunch of decisions that were maybe foolhardy or not particularly thought out, or I was thinking emotionally with my heart when I should have been thinking with my brain. And now here I am in middle age, and I'm doing a thing that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
That it doesn't fulfill me like emotionally. And I am in a relationship that maybe is not the most fulfilling, and I don't have a great relationship with my kids, and maybe I wish I had done a bunch of things different. And this movie just on top of, or underneath rather, being like this kind of rollicking sci-fi multiversal adventure, it's really a story about like how people can feel boxed in by the life that they have led, and how, you know, a core experience, existential experience of just being a person is wondering, man, what if I had done things differently?
Yeah.
And this movie lets the characters access all these different lives that they could have led. You know, like when Evelyn manages to access the dimension in which she is a movie star, an international movie star.
Which was her dream.
Her dream, right? It comes to this place where she's like, man, I guess I shouldn't have run away with my husband, Waymond, who I loved at one point in time, but like, maybe that wasn't for the best. Maybe I should have chased my dream, and I could have been an international movie star. Like that, I want to stay there. Maybe I want to stay there. And that just felt like universal to me.
Yeah.
That's a universal dream, a universal fantasy that people have.
There's something like incredibly honest and vulnerable about it too, where it's like admitting that there's maybe something you want that's more, and then kind of the realizations of what that really means. Like the bit that really like, I mean, there's so many good bits in that world. Like we were talking about this, but like Waymond in that world, when she accidentally bumps into him, it's very much his Wong Kar-wai in the mood for love kind of moment. And Key is so brilliant, and you just think like, why aren't these the roles he's been getting anyway? But in that world, the first thing Evelyn asks is, you know, where's Joy? Where's my daughter?
Yeah.
But she doesn't exist in that world. And it's those little moments where it's just like, like these are the things, the pieces that come together, the butterfly effect, you know, chaos theory. It's the little things that could change everything. And something else I love in the terms of that in this movie, that I love in every movie, this is one of my favorite things in any movie from any era, is like the way that they show technology. And they have so much fun with this kind of retro futuristic technology.
I love that.
It's so great, and the visuals are fun. And also like, I love the way that they literally do the chaos theory butterfly effect thing, where like you'll see the one decision and then you get to see this kind of mapped out how everything changed. And I'm just like, well, it's like, it's a really cool visual, but it's really deep.
Yeah.
it's really scary.
On the one hand, that kind of like retro future hardware, like the different kind of like verse jumping hardware that Waymond and the Alphaverse wears to like, and his crew wear to like, keep track of what's going on. On the one hand, like, I remember thinking it's great design, but also like it must have been great because like this is cheaper than like CG or making it look cool. But the other thing I was thinking, did you ever watch The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai?
Of course.
It felt like that. It felt like a super weird, like...
There's
retro future take
Yeah.
on a sci-fi movie that felt like alongside all the different references, the Jackie Chan references, the Shaw Brothers references, the Wong Kar-wai references that are in this movie, it also felt like it was pulling on that what I think is actually like a super weird, not that good, kind of bad sci-fi movie from the 80s, but that is so unique in the way it looks. And that's what it reminded me of, the Buckaroo Banzai.
There's like so many unbelievable kind of like draw things here. Like there's this old South Korean movie from like 2003 called Save the Green Planet. And there's like something to that of the way his head looks. And there's like definitely those old 80s sci-fi, kind of the almost like the serialized like Flash Gordon costumes that you just pull on and you have to build, you know, the Rob Liefeld many pockets. Like there's a lot of pockets in those universes. And like there's something so tangible, and I am a big proponent. I'm always the person who's like, I wish this was practical, you know. On the South by Southwest episode, I was like, if I could change one thing about the MCU, I'm like, fuck it, I'll just make it all practical.
More practical.
I'd love to see what it would
effects.
look like. But they utilize practical and VFX in this movie in a way that feels very tangible and touchable and stylized, but also really slick. Like it doesn't feel there's something very special about that balance in this movie that I think also comes from the nature of doing like so many in-camera stunts and so many unbelievable kind of, you have to have that balance of like, how can we use VFX here to elevate what we're doing while still making it feel real and being able to feel those punches. And I mean, the Waymond fight scene where he utilizes his fanny pack, that's going to go down in cinema history.
Fanny pack. It absolutely is going to be. I always rate a movie, an action movie, by, like, in part by, am I going to rewatch this scene at 1 a.m. on YouTube randomly because it's like a random Wednesday night and I want to take a break from work? And the answer is 100% yes. I'm going to watch that. Yeah. I'm going to watch that fanny pack scene. I'm going to watch the Evelyn fight scene with Deirdre. There's gonna be a bunch of stuff that I watch in this, and I can't stress enough like how like frenetic and energetic the action scenes are. The Daniels came up through music video, and like there's a level of ADD-ness. Like their most famous music video is the DJ Snake Lil Jon classic "Turn Down for What." Turn down for what? So the action scenes are in a lot of ways like very reminiscent of that, with like, you know, like people being thrown through floors and like so much action and comedy on the screen at the same time, and incredible camera moves. Just a really, really, really funny and original film in that way. Yeah, and I think just shout out, I believe they're called Martial Club, which is they're a group of YouTubers who create like martial arts kind of stunt pieces in their own houses, and that's who the Daniels found and brought on to kind of collaborate with them. Just unbelievable stuff. When you watch it, you can't really believe it. It definitely is that rewatchable factor. Like afterwards, I was like, yes, this is like, it's like the scene in The Raid where they get halfway up the building and Iko Uwais starts doing Silat and uses his knife and takes out like 10 people in the corridor. It's the corridor scene from Oldboy. It's the John Wick, the first time that he shows his gun fu in the house when he's being invaded. The scenes where you're just like, oh, have you seen this? And you don't necessarily have to show the whole movie, but this film is like absolutely full of them. But also it's like this really sweet, I mean, there's a whole segment of this movie that is just two rocks. Not going to say anymore. But it is part of the most powerful part heartfelt. Of the movie. Yeah, it is like really, really heartfelt. And to your point with the rock scene, there are, for all the people who are like, oh man, like where's, I'm worried about the state of movies today with the economics being so kind of warped by the success of the Marvel movies. Here is a movie that does everything you want like a summer blockbuster to do, but also has like that indie movie heart and audacious,
there is so much
super weird
stuff.
choices that are like the rock scene where you're just like, man, I can't believe that worked, and it really works. It lands so hard.
Yeah, and I think as well, like we've talked a lot about the icons, but like nobody was writing a script like this for Michelle Yeoh. You know, she said this is the script where she read it and she was like, this is the movie that can see all the different things I can be. I can be funny. I can be serious. I can be badass. I can be sad. I can, you know, and we know, like we've said, he hadn't been in a major Hollywood movie for like 20 years. This was his first audition, I think that Daniel said, for 20 years. And then obviously James Hong, who's like an icon and has over 600 credits and is just absolutely one of my favorite actors of all time. But he gets to have this really dynamic, complex, hilarious, action-packed character arc, again, that nobody is really writing for him. Like, probably his biggest role in a movie like this since like Big Trouble in Little China, where you're getting this really layered like character piece. And it's just, that's like miraculous to see. And that's not even shouting out like Jamie Lee Curtis, who just plays everything so straight. Like you can't believe
down
the
the
things she does in this movie and the sincerity with which she does them. Like in my dreams, like this movie sweeps every Oscar and every award season next year. And Michelle Yeoh is 100% there.
Just one of our greatest living talents.
Like she should be getting a Best Actress Oscar. And Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm like, put her up for Best Supporting, baby. Because Stephanie Sue as well. But like this cast is just unreal.
Let me ask you, what was your Michelle Yeoh like entry point? What was your original drug? You're talking for getting into the Michelle Yeoh version. Mine is like super. It's the obvious one, Super Cop, Police Story 3 Super Cop, in which she plays like a police detective who then has to link up with Jackie Chan's character to take down drug dealers in Malaysia, and it contains some of the craziest stunts. Michelle Yeoh jumps a dirt bike onto a moving train in this movie. Just fucking insane. And then later on I would watch all the rest, Yes Madam.
I was gonna say mine is definitely Yes Madam.
Yes like Madam, absolute classic Hong Kong movie with Sammo Hung,
it's
fucking
so
Cynthia Rothrock, Sui Ark,
iconic.
Incredible.
It's like, it's so bonkers to think like Michelle actually did a really incredible interview recently with my friend Gretchen Smale at Bustle, which is just so wonderful and adds a lot of really complex layers to the movie, where she talks about how she retired from acting and Hong Kong cinema at the age of 28 with plans to start a family. So she'd already done all of that. By the time she was 28, she'd had a whole career. Yes, Madam, Super Cop, like these unbelievable iconic movies. Just put Yes, Madam into YouTube and
Yes,
watch
Madam
some of the scenes
must be seen.
with Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh. I mean, as a kid who grew up watching like Kung Fu movies, that movie was like a revelation.
It must be seen.
And then she came back and she has this second wave of like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
These...
I mean, Yes, Madam was like 1985.
85. That's what I'm saying. Like, just unbelievable stuff. And it's just, she's been so iconic on so many levels. And I think for a lot of us, she has been like a staple of all kinds of cinema, whether it was like Hong Kong cinema, whether it was whether it was Wushu actually coming to Hollywood for the first time with Crouching Tiger, it's astonishing the impact she's had. And I feel like this is a celebration of that, but also probably just marks like the third wave of her career where she'll just become even more powerful.
We're in the Endgame now, and today we are going to name our top 3 Hong Kong action movies, or just movies that came out of Hong Kong. We may cheat, we may not cheat to involve movies that came from other locations in Asia and Southeast Asia, but that's the game. Our top 3 Hong Kong action movies. Rosie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start with a classic, mostly because I actually just saw it.
Do it.
Recently, which is, I went to the New Bev with my friends Elijah and Vanessa, and it was so wonderful. And we saw Once Upon a Time in China.
Oh, yeah.
With Jet Li as like a folkloric, like he's like a hero, and Wong Fei-hung, who is this martial arts master. And we saw Once Upon a China 1 and 2, Once Upon a Time in China 1 and 2, and it was just like so wonderful to see that movie on 35 mil. It's like this historical epic, you know. Jet Li's a baby, and there's other babies in it.
Baby.
Dude, you get to see. I was like, I literally, no joke, I like was screaming when you just see people popping up, and you're like, oh, hi. You're like, it's just like a masterclass. It's also incredibly funny, which a lot of the Hong Kong movies are, but this one has like this really serious historical kind of lens that it begins through. So when you get to those comedy moments, it's really good. So yeah, that would be my number 3.
I'm gonna start my number 3. God, this is like honestly so hard, and just
Truly,
if you just say like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, and John Woo, like
and Donnie
already,
Yen. I mean, it's
and
like
Donnie,
it's just too
like,
many people.
It is, you've already done, but so I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the 1983 Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung collaboration with Yuen Biao, also starring Project A, which is a period movie about the 19th century Hong Kong or early 20th century Hong Kong, and how this trio of police heroes has to deal with these like evil pirates. Jackie Chan references the famous Harold Lloyd stunt where he falls like off the clock tower. Jackie Chan in this movie falls off a clock tower and onto his head. And it is like filmed in meticulous slow-mo where you watch him fall like through awnings and then hit the ground. And it is just crazy. It is crazy. There's some like really fun bicycle hijinks. It's just like a fantastic movie. And I love the period of Jackie's career when he was working with Sammo and Yuen Biao closely, and they were together doing all these movies. It's just like super fun. Great movie. You can't go wrong if you rent it or watch it.
Yeah.
Great film.
That movie is amazing. And also like I think there's like, I've watched a lot of documentaries about like Sammo and Jackie and stuff. And if you were on a Sammo movie, you were probably getting hurt. And I think
100% you were going to get hurt.
That's why those movies, like when you watch them, you're just like, oh my God. And then everyone's like, yeah, I broke my neck. Like,
there's a fight scene in the pirate's lair that is like, the pirate's lair has this long, almost like a balcony staircase with like 2 staircases that like kind of go up and meet each other on a rise with like a tall balcony on the top. And there's dudes getting kicked off of that, getting thrown off the balcony, landing on the stairs like hard where you could see they're landing. It's pain. It is pain. Your next pick.
Okay, so my second one is like this. I love Shaw Brothers movies, and I especially love in like the 80s when they started getting like really, they moved a little bit away from like the kind of more serious like Bruce Lee inspired like historical stuff. And there's this movie that I caught one time on TV that has become one of my favorite movies called Holy Flame of the Martial World. And it is absolutely bonkers because it is like a full-on fantasy movie. And it's about a brother and sister who are seeking vengeance for the killing of their parents. Classic Hong Kong movie trope. Yeah. But they all have like superpowers, like Street Fighter style, Hadouken-esque. Like, it's directed by Chung Koo Lu, and it is just one of the wildest movies I've ever seen. It's probably my favorite Shaw Brothers movie, but I love like every Shaw Brothers movie. As soon as I see that logo come up, like Shaw Scope, I'm just like, I'm in a happy place. But that one I would definitely seek out because it is like, it's trippy. It definitely has big Everything Everywhere All at Once vibes actually, because they're just mixing so many genres and so many brilliant practical effects. But that one is like that's a standout for me.
I love that. I was watching like a Shaw Brothers / Hong Kong action film documentary, and they were talking to Cynthia Rothrock about one of her early pictures. It might have been The Magic Crystal, but I forget what. And she was like saying how they were just like, okay, you come in and you just look up here. Okay. And then she didn't. And then later she saw the movie and she realized like she was looking up at a UFO. She's like, I wish somebody would have told me that that's what I was looking at.
Time's money, baby. Time's money.
Time is money. You got to do this quick. Okay. My next pick. God, this is so hard. So hard. I'm not going to pick another Jackie Chan movie. I am going to pick. Okay. This was my unwittingly kind of my introduction into Hong Kong cinema for real. It is John Woo's The Killer. They were playing it like on Showtime or Cinemax, like late at night, like 1, 2 a.m. And I caught it just some random evening. I had no idea. I didn't know who John Woo was. I didn't know about this new emerging style of Asian action film that has been labeled since Gung Fu, which is like take away the swords and the two-handed fighting of like kung fu movies, put 2 Beretta pistols in the hands of your protagonist,
and
some
Woo,
doves
baby.
flying majestically, and you have Gung Fu. The Killer, it is, another classic Hong Kong action setup. You have a assassin who has accidentally in the course of carrying out a hit has blinded an innocent woman, and he's guilt-ridden by this, and he then is like, I gotta atone for my sins. And then he ends up having this kind of like opposites attract, a friendship bond with a cop, and together the two of them take out, I don't know, hundreds of bad guys. Like
Their body count
hundreds
is
and
like
hundreds.
more than Jason. Like
The body count is so absurd in this film, and I had never seen anything like it at the time.
Yeah, it's
I was
unbelievable to watch.
I was like, I don't know, like 12 or 13 or whatever the first time I saw it, and I was like, this is so crazy. I have never seen anything like this. And to this day, it's just one of the most fun. There's a scene in which the assassin and the cop they're in the house of the woman who has been blinded, right? And they have guns on each other in a classic setup that would then be ripped off a million times by a million other directors, including like Quentin Tarantino and others. And they are like in this standoff, like guns drawn, and she has no idea because they're playing it off like everything's fine. And it is such a super fun scene. You realize like where a lot of the stuff from like Face Off came from. Anyway, The Killer, just phenomenal movie.
I was going to say, like, if you like John Wick, if you like even like The Matrix,
this is the
things
dad,
like that,
yeah.
like that's one of those movies where you watch it and you're going to be like, oh my God.
Yes.
Okay. Ugh, this is so hard, man. Okay, but I'm going by pure enjoyment. So don't.
Yeah, pure enjoyment. That's fine.
I would say Once Upon a Time in China, people will say that's a top 3. So I'm going to go. This is very true to my taste. So my number 1. This is the one that I watch. This is the one where when I'm on a plane, I download it onto my iPad so I can watch it. And I actually was once on a plane to a set visit, and I had an old grandma sitting next to me, and she ended up watching it with me, and she was so into it. This is Return to the 36th Chamber.
Oh, hell yeah.
Starring the absolute icon, Gordon Liu, in one of the most outrageously meta plot lines of all time. So it is part of the 36th Chamber series, tangentially. And it is, in this movie, Gordon Liu plays a scammer who is pretending to be the monk that he plays in the 36 Chamber movies.
The other movies.
So he is like, it's so meta and silly. And it is also one of my favorite things about Hong Kong movies that American action movies never, ever have ever caught onto. It's a union movie. It's a movie about workers rising up against their terrible bosses who are working this dying factory. And it is just... it's so silly and so funny. And Gordon Liu's one of the best martial artists who ever lived. He's absolutely incredible. And he's so charming. And it has this end fight scene where he wants to learn how to become a martial artist. So he's been at the school and they just keep making him do scaffolding. Like they keep making him work. They won't let him actually, learn anything. And in the end, he has a scaffolding fight where he's using the scaffolding poles and using what he saw in the school. And it's like one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. I watch it so much. It makes me so happy when I watch it. It's
what a great pick.
Oh, I love Gordon Liu so much and I love these movies, but this is the one where I just think that's so clever. Like, I would love to see. It's like having a Marvel movie, and then you have like a sequel to the Marvel movie where like Robert Downey Jr. is playing someone who just looks like Tony Stark pretending to be him. It's so silly, but it's done so well, and that to me is like a peak. That's like the peak of the Shaw Brothers stuff.
I am gonna pick for my final pick, my number one movie. I thought about going outside the box, and this is kind of like a consensus. I think a lot of people might pick this. So this movie is my introduction to Jackie Chan. That wasn't one of the Cannonball Run movies. Whatever the Cannonball Run movie is that Jackie Chan appears in, that's the first time I ever saw Jackie Chan. I didn't know who he was. This is the first time I watched a Jackie Chan movie and realized this is like a star who I never even knew existed and has been working in this other world, on the other side of the earth. It is a police story.
Yeah, of course.
Jackie Chan as a cop who has to take down like drug dealers and protect a witness. It is, I think, one of the greatest action movies legitimately of all time.
Ever.
The opening set piece of this movie is like the climax of most other action movies.
And they're just like, this is just the open. This is the cold
This
open.
is the opening. This is the opening, like 8 minutes of the movie is any other movie's climax. Like they legitimately destroy an entire fucking town on the side of a hill. And then it keeps going. It just some of the greatest fights, some of the greatest action, a famous stunt in the climax of this movie, which takes place in a mall that was later ripped off for the Sylvester Stallone movie Tango and Cash. It is just like a great all-time great movie. Jackie Chan breakdances and moonwalks in it at one point to get dog poop off his shoe. It's just like a great film that gives you everything that Jackie Chan has. And the Criterion Collection has a wonderful 4K restoration of this movie that if you want to get like a great version of this movie and have it in a actual like hard media version, that's a great way to go. Just one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I think that's the movie that a lot of people think about when you say Hong Kong cinema as well, and especially in the terms of Jackie Chan. And actually, I'm glad you brought up the Criterion because we're in a really lovely phase now where this stuff's getting recognized. Criterion did an unbelievable Bruce Lee collection recently, very overdue, but absolutely brilliant with just unbelievable amounts of great restorations, but also incredible special features. One of the best things that I own, the Arrow Video actually just did a Shaw Brothers collection too, which is much earlier Shaw Brothers stuff. Really serious martial arts, like some movies I hadn't even seen, which is kind of rare for me. And Once Upon a Time in China as well, the trilogy just got a Criterion box set, I believe. So I'm really glad that we're in a time where these movies are being seen for the cinematic impact that they have. Because like you said, Jackie Chan is like a legend. He is a legend globally. And not just that, he's like, he still runs a stunt school where he trains these unbelievable stunt teams who work with him, and he trains the next generation of action stars. And that's a legacy aside from just the hundreds of incredible roles that he's
had.
And
if you pick up that Criterion version, some of the DVD extras include a documentary where Jackie takes you through his stunt school, shows you how he works with his stunt performers and how they create these unbelievable scenes. Really fun. Okay, that's it for the Endgame. What movies would you have selected? Hit us up at #XRVEndgame to give us your picks.